reporting services. You will see that in a minute as well. And now we brought the same location technology also to the cloud. So SQL Azure is now spatial enabled and has the same spatial capabilities as our on-premise database. On top of that, you know things like the Azure Data Market. So it's basically a data federation service, a platform for consuming and selling data. A lot of these data that are being offered there are actually spatial data. Weather information as a layer that you can drop immediately into Bing Maps. NAVTEC data with points of interest is sold through that platform. Demographic information, for example, coming from Esri and other providers, directly part of this Azure Data Market. A lot of that is actually also for free, but it also offers the opportunity to create new business models and basically trade and sell the data through that sort of platform. And then we have all these consumer technologies. They are always fancy and nice. One thing that is always very fine balance that you have to make is innovating and doing that in a way that it is also reliable and sustainable for long-running products. So for example, if you have a product that ships every 5 years, then you cannot afford that you build in a component that updates 6 times a year. So that might be something where you have to also have a look at what of these technologies here in the consumer space is also something that is sustainable and reliable enough for B2B applications. Now, in the B2B space, less fancy, less interactive, less lively, but nevertheless, a lot value in this information is all things around location intelligence. And when we talk about location intelligence, that can have multiple aspects. So a very simple but nevertheless interesting aspect is this one here. It's a Silverlight application based on the pivot control that we have in Silverlight. And it allows you now to filter through all sorts of real estate listings that we have in that area and reorder and recreate the results. So the first thing was that I applied here the price filter. So I didn't want to spend more than a certain amount. Now we start and do things with spatial information. So I say I want to have a waterfront that is being analyzed here and then visualized in that pivot viewer. Now I go into a graph view and I say I want to have at least 3 bedrooms. Okay, now we are down with the filter criteria. I can have a look now by the cities and I say I want to go somewhere in the vicinity of Miami. That is a location information again. And then we have more information that I can drill into. I can click on each of these objects here and then I get the details. And when I want to have a closer look, it integrates very nicely with Bing Maps. So you see the button Map up there. And when we click on that, we will see that Bing Maps pops up also through the Silverlight interface. Very fast, very interactive, fancy animation in there, so we see what the house would cost. And then I can, of course, go into this nice bird's eye perspective or even into the street side perspective at this place. Now this was interesting. It had location components, so there was some intelligence behind that as well. So perhaps that is already location intelligence. But that is not the typical way how we think about location intelligence. This is more something where we have an entry-level application, I would say. Very nice, very interactive as well. Interesting colors, I would say. But what we see is a couple of CRM information here with key performance indicators that actually trigger the color of these circles that we have around the headquarters of this company here. So we see green segment here around that property indicates everything is fine. Yellow is, okay, we're not quite there. And red is, we have a problem. So that means I can drill down. There's a combination and a trigger that basically combines that together with a couple of charts and spark lines that we can see here as well. So it is already a lot of intelligence in that application, but it still is only evaluating point data that have augmented with some form of KPI from a database. Now, more things that you see quite frequently are all sorts of thematic maps. So you have geographic regions and you want to find out how they compare to each other. That is the typical kind of location intelligence application or thematic mapping that you see today a lot. In this case, it's crime figures that you see here. It could be sales efforts that you have. It could be all sorts of dissatisfaction. Any sort of KPI that you want to analyze with a geographic content would work in that sort of way. And that works always if you have a clearly defined geographic area. But if you don't, if you want to do something, for example, like let's analyze traffic accidents, then it doesn't help me that much when I know, okay, in that Reading area, for example, we had 500 traffic accidents. I really want to know where the hotspots are. And in order to do that, there are things like heat maps or density maps that are much more appropriate. So in this case, we see these heat maps overlaid with all sorts of issues. That is a local authority, the city of San Francisco in this case, that runs this application, runs in Windows, Azure, and SQL Azure in the background. And you see here, there are plenty of points where the citizens complained about garbage that wasn't cleaned, where there was graffiti, where there was a traffic light broken. Yeah? So you can basically click on this thing, drag it to the location, and then you can provide your information that explain the issue that is there. Now on the other side, that triggers a workflow process. A work order is being issued to investigate the problem that is there and fix it. And then the citizens can benefit from that, and they see, okay, we have more and more information where complaints are coming here from the eastern part of San Francisco. So that might be interesting if you want to buy a house. So more problems in the eastern part. Perhaps you should go to the western part of San Francisco. It might also be interesting for the local authority there, because they know there is a problem area now, and these are the hotspots. I can clearly identify there is one here, there is one here, and then there is an area here. So if I would now do something, for example, like have the police make more controls in these three areas, I can probably tackle a lot of these problems as well. So there are two sides of the intelligence and how that could be useful for the authorities and the citizens in that city. Integrated in CRM and ERP application. That is one of the big things that we see a lot. Microsoft Dynamics, this partner here has also done a lot with SAP. And what you see here is a couple of, thematic mappings together with a couple of charts that we have for that, pie charts. But imagine now this. You have a customer who has a problem, calls in at your hotline, and you need to find out who is the nearest service engineer who has the right skills and the right equipment on board. That is location intelligence integrated into a CRM system, brought to life and really useful. You can obviously then also find out, okay, we have now Tony, who is qualified, who has the right equipment on board, but he's currently working at another customer, and he will be ready there in half an hour. So he could be, considering the drive time that we have, at this customer who just called in an hour from now. So you can give him a reliable and good information based on location intelligence integrated in your CRM system. This has obviously also a mobile component. Obviously, it's not perhaps the right word for that, but they did it on a mobile device as well, more for the small companies who want to have this information always on the go. Now that was the easy part. So everything that you saw so far is relatively easy to tackle. You don't need to be a geospatial genius to do something like that. But if we want to go a little bit further and combine the traditional GIS world together with that more modern and interactive world of web mapping applications like Bing Maps, then there are various ways how you can basically bridge this gap in between. The one is more an on-premise heavy server and heavy application side that we have there, and we need to get that somehow and extend it into the web sphere. And in order to do that, we can use lightweight GIS packaged products that do that for you. We can use common standards that are defined by organizations like the Open Geospatial Consortium, of which Microsoft is a principal member. We can use tools and infrastructure components to work against the same backend components, or we can do direct integrations. And this is one of the things that we once did for an insurance company. So we wanted to find out an aggregated risk. So imagine that you want to call in with an insurance agent and you want to have a home insurance. In this case, we will basically, the insurance agent will enter that address and he will find out, this location that he just geocoded is within a flood risk area, and there might also be an area of earthquakes or whatever other risk you might have in that region there, hurricane area, whatever that is, and it augments then and aggregates all this information and gives you a recommendation. The problem with that is always not around a certain area as you see that here. Are we inside or not inside? The probably is in the boundaries, and what you see here is in fact that the address that we geocoded is inside the low-risk area, right? But we see that the house that belongs to that is inside the high-risk area. That is a normal phenomenon if you work with that sort of data around the boundary lines. The geocode that comes back is usually on the street front, while the house might be a little bit further back. So what we did here is we used the spatial functions in SQL Server and said, okay, we create a buffer around that object, and we try to find out if it intersects with the low-risk area and anything around that. And it tells us in this case, okay, we are in a low-risk area, but we are also within 100 meters of a high-risk area, and now we need to visualize and check that and verify that with the aerial images, for example, or in extreme cases send a surveyor out and find out what the situation there is. That can be taken to further steps. So in this case, we are talking about some form of hurricane and disaster management systems that was built for British Petroleum. It had nothing to do with the oil disaster that they had, but it was after the bad Katrina hurricane that they had. So they monitor, in this case, integrated in SharePoint with SQL Server in the back end and Bing Maps obviously in the visualization layer and the presentation layer here. They have 28 different data sources that they tap into. And we see here, this is the position where the hurricane is at the moment, here. This is the cone in which he might drift, so the most likely course of the hurricane plus the risk area that could be affected. That is why it opens up here. And then I can find out which of the properties of British Petroleum are in that risk area and when will they be affected most likely. So that is not just the oil platforms and oil rigs that they have here, but it's also the offices and the homes of the citizens and the employees that they have. So they can send out early warnings to the family members of the workers that they have in that area. They can plan for evacuation capacities. There's a workflow engine in the back end. In this case, it's based on BizTalk server that basically manages out everything and sends all the steps. You basically only have to hit the button, okay, send it out. You get the alert and then confirm you want to have it sent out, and it does the rest for you. So that was a major improvement from the operational side.